and then we'll introduce Ashley and move on to the next part of the program this morning. So Ashley Seiler is the Executive Director for the Southern Region of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Eastern Missouri and Acting Director of ABC Today Schools for the Eastern Missouri region. In her 20-year tenure at Big Brothers Big Sisters, she has led the growth of the region from serving around 100 youth to nearly 350 youth annually prior to the pandemic. In addition to growing the number of youth served, the staff of the agency has grown from 3 to 9 local employees, and Ashley has led the innovation of 2 new programs, ABC Today and Group Mentoring, both of which have expanded to other regions of the Big Brothers Big Sisters service area in Missouri. Ashley grew up in Southeast Missouri and has an undergraduate degree in social work from SEMO and a master's degree in clinical social work from the University of Missouri-Columbia. She currently resides in Leopold, Missouri with her husband, Scott, and 5-year-old daughter, Kinley, on their family farm. Ashley has been a 3-time Big Sister mentor and been involved in many different community organizations in support of area youth. So thank you for joining us this morning, Ashley. We've had the pleasure of doing a few groups with some of your big and little matches in the past as well, and know what a great service you all offer to the community here. So we're excited to hear more about the services you offer today and for you to share that with all of us this morning. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you, Shelley, and good morning to you all. It's great to see you. I'm really excited to have this space to be able to share more about Big Brothers Big Sisters. Hopefully most of you have heard of Big Brothers Big Sisters, but what I'll share this morning is probably new to some of you as well, and some of the innovative spaces that we have entered in the last couple of years. I want to first just start by acknowledging that this work takes all of us, and you participating in this phone or this virtual session this morning shows your commitment to youth and area organizations, and we all depend on folks like you in this room. So thanks for taking the time to be here and learn from each other. So let me just start with the Brothers Big Sisters. We're a 100-year-old organization, but in terms of where we're at in Cape, we were founded in 2000 by a group of community folks who really saw the need for mentoring in our community and advocated for that. Some of you may not know that at the time, Big Brothers Big Sisters of America was not adding new affiliates, and so they were told that they had to, our local folks were told that they had to find an agency to attach themselves to. And so in 2000, prior to 2000 and the years leading up to that, several folks visited with our current CEO, which was Big Brothers Big Sisters of Greater St. Louis. And she had just come from Atlanta at the time and said, we're not interested in really adding satellite offices. And so she tells the story much better than I, but she agreed to take the meeting out of courtesy to the folks. And she tell you that after a 3-hour meeting, she agreed to open an office after seeing the passion and really the drive from the local community and the need that they shared with her. So we started in 2000 with 1 match and have grown exponentially over the course of the 22 years that we've been here. I've had the privilege and pleasure of being here a lot of those years. And so mentoring is our core, and we believe that our purpose is to partner with young people in the pursuit of a meaningful, stable, and independent life. And while mentoring is very much the core of that, our focus is also on whole family, whole child, because we know that if we're just supporting the young person, that we're missing a huge component, because family stability is really so important to young people in our community. And so we're really working hard to find opportunities to do that. We also know that young people in the community that we work with have a lot of barriers, have a lot of challenges, but while we know that we can't eliminate those things for the families that we work with, we know that we can interrupt some of those things. We can build relationships, we can build networks, we can, through thoughtful navigation, try to overcome some of those things. And again, really where community comes and takes over. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the programs that we offer. As I mentioned, one-to-one mentoring is our primary and our core, and what we're historically known for. So youth that we work with through one-to-one mentoring, youth enter our program from age 5 to 17, and are have to be willing participants in that mentoring program. But we have those youth who are matched to trained and supported volunteers within our community. So we do that through big brother, big sister matches. We do that through big couple matches. And we also do that through what we call big family matches. When youth and families call us and ask to participate in our program, we go out and talk to the family a little bit about what that participation should look like and what their expectation for the participation they think that will look like. And then really try to get a good gauge of what kind of family environment do they have? What kind of interests does the child have? And how do we look for someone who we think can really bring out the potential in that young person? And then similarly, when volunteers call us, we have a very similar enrollment process, obviously adhering to some important safety things that need to be covered before we put an adult in a young person's life, but then also do a lot of the interest things too. Like, what are you interested in doing? What do you want this experience to be like for you? Obviously, the pandemic has created some obstacles for continuing to grow in the one-on-one space. I think in every agency, we've experienced different challenges that have prevented us from reaching as many folks as we'd like to. But we're really excited about what's next for us and our potential to grow one-to-one mentoring. We're having a lot of conversations in our area about new communities who are welcoming this conversation around mentoring and are really excited about that. So there'll be more to come, but right now we currently serve Cape and Scott counties in one-to-one mentoring, and are hopeful that will be on the uphill for more mentoring in the future. One thing that has really come out of one-to-one mentoring, though, was what we call ABC Today Schools. And this, again, was really an innovation that came out of Big Brothers, Big Sisters here in Cape, identifying that we really needed a partner with people to support our young people, and that we couldn't just be doing this alone. And so one of the first places that we formed partnerships is with our schools to understand what the school experience was like for some of our young people in our program, and understanding where they may be struggling to be successful in the school environment. And so we do collect data for each of the young people in our schools. So we'll collect their attendance, their behavior, and then their grades in reading and math to better understand what kind of external support we can give to the family and to the volunteer who's working with that young person. And we did that for some number of years, and in full partnership with the school. We are not the experts in education, but really trying to identify from their expertise, what are the things that we need to be looking at? And they came back to us with essentially ABC, the attendance, behavior, and course performance information. After meeting with the school district for several years, they said, this is really great, but you all are working with about 250 kids and we work with 4,000. How do we take this to the next level and really create a space for us to be able to impact more kids within our school district? And out of that, ABC Today Schools was really developed. ABC Today is schools is a collective impact model that really relies on community partnerships. So essentially, in each of our local schools, We have a network of community partners who come together each quarter and look at data, whole school data, and determine how do we, with of course, staying in our lane and not drifting from our own missions, how do we come together and really talk about and collaborate to support schools and students? What we found is prior to these networks forming is that there's a lot of great people doing really great stuff in schools. But that we weren't really working in alignment. We were all kind of working in silos and didn't really know what each other was doing. And so this creates really the opportunity for us all to come together and share with our schools how we can work more collaboratively for greater impact within those schools. So this has been really, really cool to see this happen. It started in Cape with one school. We're now in 18 schools over Eastern Missouri and are looking for some additional for growth in additional schools. So we're in St. Louis Public Schools and in University City Schools as well in the St. Louis catchment area. Another thing that was sort of born out of ABC Today was, again, this belief and understanding that, it's not possible for Big Brothers Big Sisters to serve every youth in a school building, but where can we bring some support for students who maybe mentoring isn't the right thing for them? So again, in partnership with schools, our staff that are working at ABC Today schools have now taken now work with our schools to identify students who might need what we call intensive supports, very similar to what Lacey mentioned, students who may not be being mentored, but maybe they're going to be referred. So how do we start working with them earlier, and how do we connect them and their families to the resources within our communities that are vital for their success? So we have about 25 youth, some of them mentored, some of them not mentored, that we're working with in local schools to identify how we can support them to be more successful. So that's been really cool to see that we're able to reach some students who are not being mentored through our partnerships with schools and the expertise of our staff. The other thing that was sort of born out of ABC Today schools is very, very new to Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we're really, really excited about is a new group mentoring concept. Some of you have heard of Honorable Young Men, and they were active program operating within our schools, but several years ago, they actually left the school to do some things outside of the schools. And at that same time, there was a new principal coming to the junior high here in Cape. And in my first meeting with him, as I do with all principals, I ask, what are your priorities and what are your strategies? Like, what are you really passionate about? What kind of things do you want for your school to ensure that as an ABC Today school, like we can align partners who really can support and elevate that? And one of the first things he shared with us was, I know we have this program and they're not in our schools anymore, and we have to do something about that. And at the same time, our agency had just went through an evaluative process with WashU, and they shared that young boys tend to sit on the waiting list for Big Brothers Big Sisters longer than girls do, and had shared that families were experiencing daughters within their families being able to have this mentor experience while their sons did not get to have that. And this was, they put it in a recommendation to us for us to explore this idea of group mentoring as a way to potentially serve young boys. And so with those converging conversations, we said, let's try it. And with the schools, we launched our first group mentoring cohort in the spring of 2021. And we've been working with 20 junior high age young men. And we've had the opportunity to hire what we call a group mentoring manager who oversees those 20 young men. They have named themselves, just been a really cool process to see. They've named themselves the PAC, and that stands for Passionate, Authentic, Courageous Kings. And the lead mentor or the group mentoring manager works with 3 other mentors to facilitate weekly check-ins, after school group meetings, and experiences outside of school. They're doing a lot of support. Our staff member, his name is Jaquin. He's in the school. He's actually based out of the school 4 days a week. So he is watching those young men, assisting them with getting to tutoring, helping identify and work with their parents on resources and all of those things, again, that are whole family, whole child philosophy really encompasses. So we are again expanding that into other areas of our agency. We'll go from one group mentoring cohort to 4 by the end of this year. We actually know where 2 others will take place and are working on the 4th school. So we'll have one other cohort in St. Louis and then one other cohort that will begin here in our southern region, and then one other cohort that's yet to be identified. So that's really been exciting to be a part of. I can tell you in the tenure that I've had at the agency, I've never experienced anything like this where we've been able to move young men off of our waiting list into a mentoring program so quickly. So we're very hopeful about the future of group mentoring and what that might mean. One of the last things I want to talk about is just support outside of mentoring and where we've been over the last couple of years. Really 2 components that we've added. One is a Big Futures component. So years ago when Big Brothers Big Sisters was created or founded, high school graduation used to be a really cool, great milestone for our youth, but we now recognize that high school graduation, that can be a confusing and perplexing and really important time in the life of our young people, and have made the conscious decision not to end our relationship with young people there. And so we've extended our promise to our young people to be with them through age 20, through age 26. Navigating those post-secondary waters with them to understand, like, what is it that you really want to do, and how do we help guide you in those conversations? How do we support you when you might need that, whether it's enrollment in an educational institution, whether it's enlistment in the military, or whether it's going to employment, or whether it's that they don't even know if there's any of those 3 that they want to do. How do we help guide them in a decision that is meaningful and impactful for who they are and using their voice for what they want to be? So it's been really, really cool to see us staying with our young people and seeing what they can do and what they can achieve with the support of others. We have a dedicated staff of about 4 Big Futures managers who are assigned, and much like a group mentoring, group mentoring facilitated, they work one-on-one with them and are there for them to figure out what they might need. And when life happens to them, as it does to all of us, they're there for the phone call and trying to help them work through whatever that might be. And the final thing that I'll talk about is just our commitment to just being going deeper with families. We recognize, and COVID really amplified this for us, is that we have to do more navigation and direct aid for our families that we work with. And that my experience in working in this field for a long time is that, and I personally have done this, so I'll put myself out there, is that a lot of times when we hear of obstacles that families have, we're like, oh, let's refer them to another agency. Here's the phone number, give them a call, see if they can help you. And I've learned that's a pretty big disservice to some of our families because they aren't comfortable in some of those spaces. They're in situations that are traumatic, and they're dealing with a whole lot of things. And so we've taken a new approach in how we really try to work with families in that space, really walking it with them, of partnering with agencies in our community to say, hey, we'll come with our families to do some of these things. We'll come help you. We'll sit down with you to fill out these applications for things. I feel pretty, I feel like I can navigate things pretty well, but in completing some of the requests for housing assistance over the course of the last 2 years, I've identified that, some of the systems that we have in place really work against our families. And so how do we use our expertise and our knowledge to really help families where, we're asking them for things that it would be so hard for most of us who have really great privilege to be able to get together. So we're really excited about the next phase and where we're going as big brothers, big sisters, and where we want to be. And glad that I had the opportunity to share a little bit more with you all this morning. Before I stop, I just would like to mention that we are a United Way partner, and we're really grateful for that partnership and all the agencies that belong to that network, as they've been hugely important to our work with ABC today, but also to our families and really linking them to different resources in the community. So with that, I think that's a wrap.
All right, thank you so much, Ashley, and thank you for the nod to the United Way. We're also super grateful to be a funded partner of theirs, and they do a lot of great work in the community, such as supporting programs like yours. I love the whole family, whole child approach. I remember reading about that in the article that the Missourian did recently, where they were talking about both you and Lacey's new programs. So I think that is really cool and really important to recognize that if we want to help kids, the way to do that is by helping everyone, the whole family, the whole community. So I really love that. And I love that you're staying with young people until they're 26 now. That is so cool. Because once they graduate or get ready to graduate, what a tenuous time to sort of lose important supports and relationships. So I just think that's wonderful to hear. So thank you so much for sharing with us this morning. And I'm sure that other folks have questions or thoughts that they would like to share with you or ask you. So I'm going to ask people who want to share to do that. And I'm also going to let everybody know that I dropped a survey link in the chat box. If everybody could, before you sign off today, fill out that survey, that would be awesome. So what kind of questions do people have for Ashley? Anybody? Mercedes, are you sitting on a question there? No?
Well, I wanted to hear more about the ABC today. I had spoken, actually, Phil Roop was actually involved, I guess, at some level with that. And he was the first one who told me about it. He's our EPIC board president. And I'm trying, and this is embarrassing, but I was kind of racking my brain trying to remember what his involvement was with that. And so how do other people in the community get involved with the ABC today?
Thanks, Mercedes. So our ABC Today networks are made up of a wide variety of folks from the community, and that's intentional. So at each of the schools, our intent is for the school leader to be a part of that network. It is very intentional that the mentoring component have a seat at that table as well. And then other social service agencies as identified by the school and or identified by a need of the school. So when a school says, gosh, we're having this influx of, right now I can tell you it's female fighting. And so it's like, how do we bring partners to the table who can help assist us in the support of how we provide interventions and things of that nature. We also reserve a seat for businesses and faith-based organizations, as they bring a little bit of a different lens and they bring a little bit of a different opportunity to the table as well. Maybe that's in resources to be able to fund some of the things that we do, or as it relates to people resources, volunteers, people coming into the schools to be able to help carry out some of these things. So Pastor Phil sits on two networks actually as a representative from the faith community. And how can he connect some of the things that he has through his work into the schools, and how do we brainstorm and support our school leaders when they share with us they're having challenges and difficulties, but how do we also celebrate them? I think we often jump to the where's the problem, but how do we also create a supportive environment and creating a positive school culture that gives students the desire to be at school. that creates a sense of belonging for them in school settings. And so that's really the work of those networks, is having those intentional conversations on a quarterly basis. Each year we sit down at the beginning of the school year and talk about, like, as a group of people, what do we want to commit to this year and how we support the schools and the students and the staff there. And then we meet along the way to understand where we're at in that plan and look at data and see if it's really making a difference. We talk about things that pop up. So anyone is welcome to participate in those networks. We always run the network members by the schools and just say, like, hey, we have a new potential partner for your school. Would you be, is this okay? Like, where do we see them fitting in to what's happening here? And I've yet to meet a school who said, yeah, we don't want more partners, because this also gives a more organized way for them to be able to work with people in our community. So they have one stream of, like, they don't have 14 people coming at them saying they want to help. And then the principal has to figure out, like, I don't know what to tell them. And I don't know what to tell them. And I'm feeling overwhelmed with all the people. Like, I know I need the help, but I just don't know how I need the help or where I need them. So this gives them an outlet, an organized way for us to all kind of be communicating in one way. So it's been really cool to be a part of this. I see Gabby's on the line from Safe House. She sits on a network. The United Way sits on a network as well. So sorry if I missed anyone else, but it's been really cool to see. And if anyone wants more information, you can certainly contact me, and I'd love to sit down and talk to you about that. As we know now more than ever, schools have a lot on their plate. And so we're constantly trying to find ways to celebrate students for their achievement and then recognize how we can support them. So I hope that answers your question, Mercedes. But
Yes, thank you.
I would add that ABC Today committee is very supportive of me and my role at Safe House as well.
How often do you meet?
Quarterly, right? It's quarterly.
Quarterly.
I'm on, like, for 3 different schools, but I think it's just one meeting per school quarterly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have an official kickoff meeting at the beginning of the year to kind of set the tone for what the principal really sees as priorities for the year, and to all kind of agree on, like, okay, here's some things that we think that we can work toward. And then we meet each quarter after the data is actually gathered, and discuss the data, what kind of efforts need to be put in place, and how we can all work within those efforts. The one thing I say we do not do, and I take this very seriously, is that we do not sit around a table and tell the school leaders, like, all this data, like, here's what you should go do about it. They don't need any more ideas. When we make decisions at that table, then it's up to us as that group of people to make sure those things happen. So whether it's like, one example is we did a career fair at the high school this year. We send postcards and letters home to students of the month within the schools from the community, not from their school, but from their community. We send them to the parents and we send them to the child, just to celebrate that accomplishment. So all of the efforts that are decided and derived from there are done in coordination with the people at that table, not with the school taking them under their wing and assigning staff to make them happen. They're all us making those things happen.
Other questions for Ashley? No.
Okay,
Well,
I'm gonna ask one more real quick. The data, what data are you collecting, or are you talking DESI type data, or you're collecting your own?
So we collect the ABCs. So we collect attendance, behavior, and math and reading grades, the same as we do for our little brothers and little sisters, just on a whole school level. So we do look at data according to what they're reporting back to DESI. So we do look at the attendance based on like the goals for schools for attendance is that students are 90% of the students are at school 90% of the time. Most people don't know that equates to the fact that a student is allowed to miss about 17 and a half days of school. And that's a whole lot of school, right? So we're looking at in terms of like to be successful, and we've developed thresholds within each of those areas to categorize how many students are successful within each of those quarters, and then how many students are actually struggling, and what's the level that they're struggling at. So we're able to see like, oh my gosh, like we already know that 14% of the school population is not going to meet our attendance threshold for this year. So are there things that we need to do to support those? Are there things we need to do to support those students, or are there things that we need to do to keep those students who are on the cusp of not meeting that success level? What can we be doing there to really encourage and empower them to get to school? So all of the data is really used to be making decisions as well, in the hope that it comes back to the like, how do we increase attendance, behavior, and course performance? Where we feel like we have the most influence is attendance, creating positive school culture, creating the opportunities for students while they're there. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into that piece.
One of the things I really like about ABC Today is that they focus on mobility rates because they realize that it affects attendance based on their data and other information that the schools that they work with provide. And so they know that these kids that move around a lot are academically affected. And they try to work with the school and partner with the community to figure out ways to assist, to help their families maybe not move as much. I feel like you guys have a big focus on mobility.
We're trying to understand the data. I think that's a piece of it too, when we're there, not just looking at the data and being like, oh, it is what it is, but what are the factors that are informing and driving this data? And what as a community do we have control over, and what do we not have control over? And when we identify the things that we can have impact on, how are we bringing other people to the table to like learn about it? And yeah, again, just make better decisions. So.
Mercedes, do you have any other questions for Ashley?
I will stop now, I promise.
I think they've all been really good questions. We're all glad that you're asking them, I think, truly. Anybody else too, please, if you have questions, hop in. Okay. And if not, I will remind everybody again that the survey link is in the chat. Also, Elizabeth Shelton was on the Zoom, and I believe she had to jump off, but I saw somebody else mention, I think it was Sharon mentioned in the chat, that the United Way fundraiser Over the Edge is next Friday, I think. So hopefully that's on people's radar. And I wanted to let people know too that EPIC's annual A Day at the Park has been scheduled for Friday, June 24th. And lots of you who are on this call have helped with that in the past, including both of the organizations that we have speakers from this morning, are usually participants too, or folks from those organizations usually are. So that's Friday, June 24th, 11 to 2 at Arena Park, shelter number 1. We'll have free food, lots of activities. It should just be a fun day. And like I said, in August, there's Mitch. She often helps with that event. And in August, we will have another Epic Ed, and that date is to be determined and location to be determined, but hopefully it will be a combination in-person hybrid. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Maggie Buckley will be our speaker for that. I wonder if anybody else who's on the call, I know we have lots of folks from different organizations. I wonder if our speakers or anybody else who is on the call have any events coming up that you all would like to share about with us before we hop off today. Going to open things up for any announcements if anybody has any. And if not, So thank you very much to both Ashley and Lacey for joining us today. And thank you everybody, especially Ashley, who was here nice and early to get things set up with me. So thank you all for bearing with me through all of the tech challenges I had this morning. And thanks again to both of you very much for speaking. We will see you all soon.
Bye.